Have you ever felt this wave of sadness or maybe anxiety and you just can't figure out where it's coming from? What if those feelings aren't just yours? Today, we're going to explore this really powerful, often invisible force that shapes who we are. We're diving deep into the fascinating world of generational trauma and how the echoes of our ancestors' survival can still be heard in our lives right now.
So let's start with a question, and I know it might sound a little out there at first, but what if that anxiety you feel, those patterns you keep repeating, or the fears you just can't shake, what if they aren't entirely of your own making? What if you're carrying a piece of a story that started long before you were ever born? That's the core idea we're unpacking today. These echoes we inherit, the emotional and psychological blueprints passed down through our families. I mean, think about it, right? Every family has its stories, its inside jokes, its way of doing things. But some of the stuff we inherit isn't spoken out loud. It's the unspoken grief, the unresolved fights, the survival skills that are passed down silently, shaping our lives in ways we might not even realize. And this brings us to the actual name for this whole phenomenon: generational trauma. So what exactly is it? Let's get a really clear definition on the table.
So here's the key thing to get. It's the transmission of trauma's effects. You didn't have to live through a war to feel its aftershocks. That chronic fear, that feeling of always being on edge, or that deep sense of shame. Those things can be passed from a parent who went through it to a child who didn't. And it becomes a very real part of their emotional world.
So how does this even happen? Well, it's not some kind of magic. It happens through very real channels. It can be relational, based on how our parents were able to bond with us. It can be cultural, through the big stories our whole community tells. It can be psychological, through coping habits we just pick up by watching those around us. And, get this, science is now showing it can even be biological, through something called epigenetic changes. These are basically like little chemical tags that stress can attach to our DNA, and those tags can sometimes get passed down. It's absolutely wild stuff.
And this is what it can actually look like in your day-to-day life. You ever feel that deep anxiety that you just can't connect to anything that's happened to you? Or maybe you find it incredibly hard to trust people and feel safe in relationships. Or have you noticed the same dysfunctional pattern playing out again and again in your family, almost like everyone's following a script they never read? These can all be signs of this inherited echo.
Okay, this next part is so important. Because when we talk about this stuff, it is incredibly easy to fall into a cycle of blame, right? But the goal here isn't to point fingers. It's about finding a much deeper level of understanding.
Just let that sink in for a second. This quote is everything. Those coping mechanisms our ancestors developed, maybe it was shutting down emotionally, or never trusting anyone in authority, or being constantly on high alert, those were survival strategies. They worked. They had to. But the trouble starts when those strategies get passed down to us into a totally different world where they're not just unhelpful anymore, they're actually hurting us.
So to see how this whole shift from blame to empathy actually works, let's look at an example. The film Sentimental Value is this brilliant exploration of this very idea. It just builds this powerful case for what empathy can do. So, instead of just painting the father in the story, Gustav, as the bad guy for abandoning his family, the film does something radical. It shows us his pain, which is rooted in his own mother's suicide after she was tortured by the Nazis. Now, it doesn't excuse what he did, not at all, but it gives us context. It makes him human, by showing us that he is also just a link in his family's long chain of pain.
And the film also challenges the daughter, Nora. I mean, her anger is 100% valid. Of course it is. But the story pushes her past that righteous anger. She's challenged to see that her father isn't just the source of her pain, but that he's a fellow traveler in this shared cyclical family grief. And that realization, that's what opens the door to a totally different kind of connection.
And really, this quote from the source just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures that feeling of this inescapable connection. Our stories aren't separate. We are the living, breathing extensions of the generations before us. And in a way, they are still living right through us. It's messy, it's tangled, and it is deeply, deeply human.
So, what do we do with all this? Are we just doomed to repeat the past forever? No, absolutely not. The whole point of understanding this is to transform what was once just about survival into a source of conscious, intentional resilience.
This is where the real power is. Just becoming aware of these patterns is the first giant step. It lets us interrupt those automatic knee-jerk reactions. From there, we can start to restore our sense of choice. We're not just following an old script anymore. And finally, we can build something new. We can take that incredible strength that got our ancestors through so much and transform it from a reactive survival habit into a conscious source of our own resilience.
And that leaves us with one last thought to carry with us. The film argues that this pain is cyclical, that it's shared. So the real question becomes, if we can acknowledge that our pain is a kind of collective inheritance, could our healing be shared too? Could empathy be the very thing that finally breaks the cycle for good?